shared purpose and direction, of vibrant ceremonial and civic life, cooperative networks and associations, have broken down, and in many families and communities, there are only a few people working for the common good. Many Indigenous people fear personal growth, transformation, and healing. In addition to those listed above, the AHF has documented 22 other impacts of intergenerational trauma that it says are contributing to dysfunction and negative outcomes in Indigenous communities. These findings have been corroborated by other organizations, including the National Collaborating Centre for Aboriginal Health, which released a 2015 report on the increased prevalence and root causes of depression among Indigenous peoples in Canada. The AHF makes a direct connection between residential schools and the challenges we see in Indigenous communities today. In so doing, it delegitimizes the notion that colonization, or civilization, as some people like to call it, has benefited Indigenous peoples. It also delegitimizes the notion that current challenges within Indigenous communities are the result of inherent deficiencies in Indigenous peoples and cultures. The AHF list of intergenerational impacts makes it very clear. Where Indigenous peoples and communities are dysfunctional and/or in crisis, it is because of colonialism, not because they are Indigenous. The way in which the Indigenous community in Toronto came together in 2016 to mourn the death and celebrate the life of the murdered young man shows that age-old philosophies of respect, responsibility, reciprocity, and relationships continue to underpin our communities, despite the negative effect of colonization and settler colonialism. These philosophies also support the transformative healing work underway in many Indigenous communities across the country. However, I have seen the dysfunction and negative outcomes described by the AHF at every level of Indigenous society, from my own life and the life of my family, to the people I know, the communities I have worked with, and the Indigenous organizations I have worked for. Indigenous peoples are more than victims, and they are not defined only by the traumatic events of colonization. As Nehio poet Billy Ray Belcourt wrote in a blog post after being named a Rhodes Scholar in 2015, an achievement that was inevitably framed around Belcourt's experiences with racism and the trauma of residential school, "Dear media, I am more than just violence. Despite the Indigenous desire to leave the past behind, however, the past doesn't seem quite done with us." This past as present reality is reflected in the lives of many Indigenous people in Canada, including the life of Robert Arthur Alexie. Alexie was chief of the Tetlet Gwich'in Band Council in Fort McPherson, Northwest Territories, and chief negotiator for the Gwich'in Regional Land Claim in 1992. After serving his people in multiple roles, he was elected president of the Gwich'in Tribal Council in 2012. Alexie was also a musician, a photographer, and the author of 2 novels, including the groundbreaking Porcupines and China Dolls, which deals with the impacts of the residential school system on Indigenous peoples. Alexie was knowledgeable, principled, and funny, and he made enduring contributions to his nation and to the country. And in 2014, at the age of 58, he was found at the side of the Dempster Highway in the Northwest Territories, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. In a 2015 piece about Alexie's contribution to Indigenous and Canadian literature, journalist Noah Richler surmised that Alexie's terrifying private demons had finally caught up with him. These demons are a persistent reality in the lives of all the Indigenous people I know and have known, affecting those on the fringes of society and those in positions of influence and authority. They exist in people who seem to be functioning just fine, thank you. The kind of people who are profiled in good news media stories that seek to overturn common myths and stereotypes about Indigenous peoples and communities. The young man whose death